My eyes were burning, my skin drenched. I lay on the couch, barely able to lift my head. The air felt thick, like breathing through wool. My phone buzzed again from the coffee table, probably Greg checking in, but I couldn't move to answer, not this time. My hoodie was soaked, stuck to my back, and my throat felt like sandpaper. 17 hours on the road, fever, chills, brain fog so heavy I forgot what day it was. I hadn't eaten in over a day, hadn't showered, hadn't even unpacked. Somewhere between Key West and the Arkansas border, I knew something was wrong, but I didn't stop, I didn't speak up, and now I might have infected the 3 people who matter most to me. I blinked slowly, the room spinning. It was supposed to be the reset button I desperately needed. After a brutal winter, working back-to-back HVAC jobs across northern Arkansas, my body was worn out, and my mind even more so. When Greg called in February and said, "Dude, you're coming on this cruise," no arguments. I didn't hesitate. Greg, my old Army buddy, had scored us all spots on a Gulf charter cruise as a thank you for helping him rebuild his storm-wrecked cabin last summer. He'd booked the whole thing. 5 days, 3 stops, all expenses covered. The crew was solid. Me, Greg, Tony, and Wes. We'd been through enough together over the years to trust each other with damn near anything. Tony runs his own diesel repair shop just outside Texarkana, and Wes is an IT guy who never goes anywhere without 2 backup chargers and a bag of snacks. The plan was simple. Leave the real world behind, no work calls, no stress, just good food, cold drinks, and some overdue bonding time. We met in Little Rock, piled into Tony's heavy-duty Dodge, and drove overnight down to Port Everglades. The cruise ship, I remember stepping on deck, letting the warm ocean wind hit my face, and thinking, this is what peace feels like. We joked about being the dad bod bandits as we boarded in our matching ball caps. The world felt distant, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't have to carry it. My lungs were full. The cruise was everything we hoped it'd be. Sun-soaked mornings, bottomless buffet lines, and nights filled with laughter that echoed down polished hallways. Our stops, Cozumel, Grand Cayman, and Key West, blurred together in the best way possible. Snorkeling in warm turquoise waters, downing tacos on a beachside patio, and watching Wes lose his mind over a $2 cigar that tasted like freedom. Greg was in his element, retelling old Army stories to anyone who'd listen, while Tony finally let loose, spending more time in the pool than out of it. I mostly just soaked it all in. The breeze, the sunsets, the feeling of not being responsible for anyone or anything. But by day 4, I felt a twinge, nothing major, just a scratch in my throat and a heaviness behind my eyes. I chalked it up to too much sun and too many rum punches. Still, I skipped the late night poker game and turned in early, figuring I just needed a night of solid sleep. The next morning, I felt a little better, so I brushed it off. We had our last dinner at the steakhouse that night. Filet oysters, smoked everything under glass. It was a celebration, a send-off, the kind of meal that makes you believe you're still young and invincible. I laughed with the guys, raised my glass, and ignored the tickle in my throat that hadn't quite gone away. If I'd known what was waiting for me on the ride home, I might have said something, but in that moment, I was still pretending everything was fine. We all were. We hit the road just after sunrise, with the truck loaded down and spirits high, or at least higher than they should have been. Tony had picked up a half-load of steel beans from a cousin in Jacksonville to haul back home for extra cash. It was a last-minute thing, but none of us complained. Gas wasn't cheap, and the haul was paying for the return trip. The only issue? The trailer was overloaded and badly balanced. We couldn't go above 55 without it swaying like a drunk on a balance beam. Every bump in the highway felt like a roll of the dice. Greg offered to drive, but Tony wouldn't let anyone touch his rig. Wes just buried himself in his earbuds and snacks in the back seat. I curled against the window, hoodie up, sunglasses on, trying to pretend the ache in my head wasn't getting worse. By hour 3, my voice had started going hoarse. By hour 5, the chills hit. It was 78 degrees outside, the sun cooking through the windshield, and I was shivering like it was January. I pulled my hoodie tighter and said I was just tired. Greg looked over at me once and raised an eyebrow, but didn't say anything. Tony, ever the germaphobe, cracked his window and offered me a water bottle without making eye contact. I tried to cough quietly into my sleeve, turning toward the door so no one would see me wince. We passed through southern Alabama, rolling through hills that should have been beautiful, but all I could think about was how badly I wanted to lie down. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, could barely swallow without pain. The air felt thin, like I was breathing through a wet rag. Every mile home felt like a punishment. I shifted in my seat, pulled the blanket tighter around me, and stared out at the endless ribbon of highway. No one said much after hour 10. The truck was quiet, save for the occasional creak of the trailer and the dull hum of the tires. I felt like I was fading. My thoughts got slower, my eyes heavier. I tried to focus on the passing trees, counting them just to stay grounded. We still had 6 hours left, but I already knew something was wrong, deeply wrong, and I was starting to realize the worst part wasn't what I was feeling. It was what I might have already passed on to the people sitting inches away. By the time we pulled into Greg's brother's driveway in northern Mississippi, I was hanging on by a thread. The sun was already dipping behind the trees, casting long shadows across the gravel as Greg's family came out to greet us, laughing, hugging, handing out cold drinks like we were war heroes returning home. I managed to fake a smile and thank his sister-in-law, Maria, for the plate she handed me, brisket, baked beans, and cornbread that smelled like heaven. I sat down on the edge of the porch, took 2 bites, and then excused myself with a weak laugh and a pat on my stomach. "Too much cruise food," I mumbled. I didn't even make it to the guest bed. I dropped my duffel at the foot of the mattress and collapsed, fully clothed, on top of the covers. Then came the fire. Not literal flames, but the kind of heat that makes you feel like your body's boiling from the inside out. Sweat poured off me in waves, but I was freezing. My teeth chattered, even though my forehead was slick. At some point, Maria knocked on the door, and I croaked out a weak, "Yeah?" She came in gently, took one look at me, and didn't even ask. "You're burning off, Eric," she said quietly. "Try to get some rest. I'll check on you in a bit." I nodded, or maybe I just blinked. Time stopped making sense. I drifted in and out of sleep, hearing voices downstairs, the creak of the house, a dog barking. Every time I opened my eyes, the room spun like I was on a carousel. Around midnight, I peeled off my shirt. It was soaked and shivered beneath the sheet. My muscles ached like I'd run a marathon. My chest felt tight, like something heavy had settled just beneath my ribs. At 2 a.m., I texted Maria again, embarrassed but desperate. "Can I get another water?" She was there within minutes. "You need a COVID test," she said gently, checking my forehead. "But not tonight. Just rest, okay?" I tried to thank her, but the words didn't come out. My body felt like it wasn't mine anymore. I knew then, knew it in my bones, that this wasn't just a cold, and I wasn't just tired. Something real had taken hold of me, and I was terrified. I'd already shared it with everyone. When the alarm buzzed at 4:15 a.m., I didn't even hit snooze. I hadn't slept, not really, just tossed and turned, fighting fever dreams and muscle cramps that felt like they were welded into my bones. I stumbled into the bathroom, took the hottest shower my skin could tolerate, and stared at myself in the mirror. Pale, sunken eyes, my hoodie stuck to my back before I even dried off. I packed my bag slowly, trying not to wake anyone, then slipped out to the truck. Greg was already loading the trailer, and Tony stood beside the passenger door with a mask on, looking like he was about to spray me with Lysol. I didn't blame him. I slid into the seat, coughing into my elbow and holding a pillow over my mouth, like some kind of DIY quarantine. Wes climbed in last, quiet and watchful. No jokes, no music, just silence and the hum of the road. We skipped breakfast, skipped small talk, skipped everything except gas stop. My chest rattled every time I breathed. Every bump in the road felt like a slap to my spine. Tony handed me tissues without looking at me. I said thank you. He didn't respond. The guilt was worse than the fever. I didn't know what I had, but I knew I should have said something earlier. Now the fear sat heavy in the cab, not just mine, but theirs too. I could see it in their eyes, and it wasn't just about me anymore. 17 hours home. 17 hours of worry, of watching every cough, every sneeze, every shiver, and wondering who I might have hurt by trying to tough it out. When we finally pulled into my driveway, just after 9 p.m., I was running on fumes. My muscles screamed as I climbed out of the truck, my head swimming in that woozy, half-delirious way that makes everything feel underwater. I muttered a quick, "Thanks for the ride," to Greg, but nobody really said goodbye. Tony didn't even look at me, just tapped the steering wheel like he couldn't get away fast enough. I didn't blame him. I grabbed my bag and staggered inside, dropped it by the door, and collapsed on the couch without even taking off my boots. The house was cold and quiet, exactly what I needed. I didn't bother turning on lights, just pulled a blanket over myself and laid there, shaking and sweating and completely drained. About an hour later, my Aunt Linda showed up. She didn't say much, just opened the door, set down a grocery bag on the kitchen table, and came over with a box in her hand. "I brought you a COVID test," she said gently. "You need to take it now." I sat up slowly, already knowing what it was going to say. My hands trembled as I swabbed my nose and waited. The result popped up faster than I expected. 2 lines, bold, no doubt. I stared at it for a long time. Didn't cry, didn't curse, just felt this heavy, awful silence settle around me. I'd been sick for days, riding in a truck with 3 of my closest friends, coughing and sweating and thinking it was just a cold. But it wasn't. It was COVID. And now all I could do was sit in my dark living room, fever burning through my veins, and wonder what kind of damage. I waited until morning to make the calls. My throat was raw, and every muscle in my body still felt like it had been through a meat grinder. But I couldn't put it off. They deserved to know. I started with Greg. He picked up on the first ring, voice groggy. "Hey man, you okay?" I told him straight. The test was positive, and I was sorry. Real sorry. He was quiet for a second, then let out a slow sigh. "Well, that explains a lot," he muttered. "I'll get tested today. No yelling, no blame, just Greg being Greg, steady, even when things go sideways." Wes was next. I could hear background noise, probably his kids. His voice dropped as soon as I told him. "I've had a headache since yesterday," he said quietly. Thought it was allergies. He didn't sound mad, just worried. Said he'd quarantine in the garage and call his doctor. That one hit hard. Wes has asthma. He'd been in the backseat with me the whole ride. Last was Tony. That one I dreaded most. He answered with a clipped, "Yeah." I barely got the words out before he interrupted. "You should have said something. Back at the steakhouse. Hell, back on the boat." I didn't argue. He was right. I said I was sorry, again, and he hung up. I sat on the couch for a while after that, the silence heavier than before. I'd spent a lifetime being the guy who pushed through, the one who never wanted to be a burden. But now, in trying not to be the weak link, I'd become the risk. All I could do now was wait and hope that the people I cared about would be okay. The days blurred together after that. I barely left the couch. The fever came and went in waves. One minute I was drenched in sweat. The next I was bundled in every blanket I owned, teeth chattering like I was trapped in a freezer. I didn't eat much. I couldn't. Even the smell of soup turned my stomach. My aunt kept dropping off care packages, Gatorade, meds, broth, but I'd hear the door creak open and shut without seeing her. I appreciated the distance. She knew how serious this was. Outside, the world carried on. I could hear birds in the trees, wind rattling the gutters, my old dog barking at nothing. Inside, it was just me and the four walls. My phone lit up occasionally, Greg checking in, Wes sending updates. Tony didn't call. I didn't expect him to. There were moments I thought I should go to the ER. My chest would tighten like someone was sitting on it, and I'd lie there, staring at the ceiling, counting my breaths. Sometimes I wondered if I'd wake up in the morning. Other times, I didn't care. The weight of guilt pressed harder than the virus. At night, I'd scroll back through photos from the cruise, sunsets over the water, Tony laughing over barbecue, Wes in his ridiculous sunglasses. It all felt like it happened to someone else, someone healthier, someone who hadn't endangered his friends. I kept the test strip on the coffee table, 2 bright pink lines, a quiet reminder that toughing it out isn't always brave. Sometimes it's just selfish. 3 days later, the calls started coming in. Greg was first. "I'm good," he said with a relieved chuckle. "Tested negative twice. Guess I got lucky." I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. Then Wes called. "Not as lucky. Positive, but symptoms were mild. It's mostly a headache and sore throat," he said. "Doc's not too worried, but I'm isolating in the garage just in case." I apologized again, and he just said, "Don't beat yourself up, man. We're grown. We all make choices." Still, his words didn't clear the weight in my chest. Tony never called, but he texted. "Negative. Don't worry about me." That was it. No emojis, no signature Tony sarcasm, just cold, efficient distance. I stared at the message for a long time before typing, "Glad to hear, sorry again." No reply came. I should have spoken up. I knew that now. I'd grown up with the mindset that you power through, don't make a fuss, don't be the weak link in the chain. But this wasn't about pride or discomfort. It was about responsibility. I'd taken a gamble with other people's health, and even if they were mostly okay, I'd still... That night, I sat out on the porch, wrapped in a hoodie, watching the wind ripple through the trees. My body still ached, and the taste of metal clung to everything I ate, but for the first time in days, I could breathe a little easier. The worst had passed, but the regret, that was going to take longer to shake. I've always prided myself on being the dependable one, the guy who shows up, toughs it out, never complains. But lying on that couch, barely able to lift my head, I realized something. Silence isn't strength, it's risk. I should have spoken up the moment I felt off, should have warned my friends, should have respected that just a cough can become something far worse. The people who care about you deserve honesty, not bravado. I got lucky. Greg was fine. Wes had it easy. Tony, well, time will tell if he ever forgives me, but I'm not here to play the hero. I'm here to say I learned the hard way. Your health isn't just about you. So if you're ever in doubt, say something, sit it out, get tested, because trying to be tough nearly cost me more than a few miserable nights. It could have cost me my friends. Sometimes the hardest lesson to learn is that being silent isn't noble, it's dangerous. In trying to be the tough guy, I risked the health of my closest friends. I thought pushing through the pain was strength, but all it did was show me how thin the line is between pride and recklessness. This experience taught me that real strength is honesty. It's having the courage to say, something's not right, even when you don't want to be the one who ruins the moment. If you take anything from this story, let it be this. Speak up. Take care of yourself, not just for you, but for the people who depend on you. And never underestimate what one small choice can ripple into. If this story made you pause, made you reflect, or reminded you of someone in your life, please hit like, drop a comment, and subscribe for more real, raw stories like this. And share it with someone who might need the reminder. Stay safe out there.